Welcome at the French Institute for the second day of the Beyond Words Festival. We are pleased and honored to welcome virtually today from Paris, Maylis de Kerangal, for this conversation about her book, Painting Time, translated by Jessica Moore for Maylis Press. Maylis' novel, Birth of the Bridge, was the winner of the Prix Médicis 2010. In 2014, her fifth novel, Men the Living, was published to wide acclaim in France, and in the UK it was longlisted for the Booker International Prize in 2016, and it won the Wellcome Book Prize in 2017, the first work in translation to ever to do so. Her latest book in English is Painting Time, and both these books are published by Maylis Press in English. And here with me in the Salon of the French Institute, we welcome Rosie Goldsmith. Rosie is a former BBC journalist, a writer and a presenter. She is founder and director of the European Literature Network and created the Riveter magazine. The European Literature Network, which is an extraordinary platform for promoting European literature in translation, is the French Institute partner for this conversation. So I would like to thank them. And after this conversation, I invite you to attend another one, which will take place this evening at 8 p.m. And it is entitled Algeria, a Legacy, and it will bring Alice Zeniter and Natalia Vince. And now, Rosie, if you please.
Merci, Matthias. Merci. And bonjour, Maylis. Where are you?
Bonjour.
Great to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Very, very wonderful to meet you. Now, there's Maylis in Paris, and I'm here in London, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be alive. I am alive. We're all very happy to be alive, but I'm at a live event, and it's the first time in many, many, many months. So it's a wonderful occasion for so many reasons. And if you, like me, loved Men the Living by Maylis de Kerangal, which was the prize-winning book we all know about, then you will adore Painting Time. You will absolutely love it. And I have to be very careful I don't embarrass myself by saying to you how much I love it, Maylis, but I'm going to be very open about it. I love it because it tells me so many things about the world, about people, about myself. It's full of humanity. It's full of absolutely wonderful writing. And for me personally, I love it because it's about painting and literature and friendship and families and love and so many of the very important issues in my life, and I know in so many people's lives. So that's my little bit. Now I'm going to ask you to tell me a few things. I'm so curious. Is there any way that you are not a painter? I mean, this book is, I have never read a novel, so detailed novel about painting. Are you a painter?
No, I am not a painter, but when I decided to write this book, I went to studios and I looked at painters who were working. And I also I didn't want to write a book on paintings like an art, but I wanted to write a book of what is the act, what is to paint. I mean, physically, like an experience. So for me, it was very interesting to see and to meet painters. And during this period, when I was writing this book, I felt that painting was taking much more room in my own life. It was very important for me.
Do you think that based on the immense research you've done now into painting, that you could become a painter?
No. No, but in fact, I try in this book to build a parallelism between painters and novelists and writers, because I was very interested about what is the art of describing, and this book it's very immersed in description. What is to describe, and what are the words, what are the sentences you can build to tell the most precisely, the most detailed way. What is the feeling, interior feeling you experience when you are painting, and I loved that a lot. It was a huge experience for me.
Well, you have captured it perfectly, and I think if we just give a very short synopsis of the novel,
Yes.
and I'll just do that very briefly, just so that people get an idea of who's involved. But just go and read the novel, people. Don't just read the novel, please, I beg you. But, so, just very quickly, it's mainly about a young woman called Paula Karst.
Paula Karst, like the karst, I mean, like the rock. Like the rock where the prehistoric cave of Lascaux has been found. And this is quite an average girl at the beginning of the book. I mean, she's a little bit lazy, and she's a little bit lost without any goal. And she finally entered the school of art in Brussels, in la Rue du Métal, l'Institut de Peinture. And there she discovered much more than paintings, but she discovered herself, her body, and also perhaps the world. And she discovered how to take her own place in it, because it's a very special school where you are learning how to recreate the materials and the surfaces of the world. I mean, wood, marbles, stones, and some of decorations.
It's basically just to explain a little bit, because it's a very what we might call niche area of the arts. But those of who they are great specialists who actually do this. But it's decorative painting.
It's decorative painting, yes, and it's like learning to be a faussaire. I mean, how do you say?
A forger. It's also about trompe-l'œil,
facsimile, and things like that. And so she learned that thing which is essential, that is to create something, to recreate something, a surface, a piece of wood, a piece of marble. You have to know it. You have to get quite a kind of knowledge, and following that path, she met not a boy, Jonas, a young man, and he's very gifted. Paula is not so gifted. She's discovering everything. He is in advance. And she met also another girl, Kate, and they formed together quite a bunch, friend with a very strong friendship, and they are going to become that kind of students. They are working all day long and all night long. Also, it's very hard, tough to do. They have many things to paint and to draw, and many things to catch and to imagine. And then after that, when she got her diploma, she go from workplace to workplace in Italy.
Job to job, really. Yes.
Job to job. She's like a freelance. She's like a freelance, and it was also for me a manner of a way of telling about of writing about someone who is going out the teenager time, out like to become an adult, how you become an adult, how you live your childhood, and you enter your world, and you can how you deal with that time, with that
I mean,
period of time.
The Germans call it a Bildungsroman,
Yes,
and it really is that. It's about.
it's a very formal classic Bildungsroman, and I could add that it's also an initiation roman, because Paula is completely initiated to the world by learning how to paint it. She discovered, and she learned how to work, how to behave with other people, and she became a young woman during the book. And
It's basically it's an apprenticeship for her life
yes,
and her work.
yes,
And I mean, this is what is so remarkable, I think, that you focus in this novel on just a few people, a
yes.
handful of people. And in, for example, Men the Living, you have a huge panorama of
Yes,
people,
yes,
many people. But
yeah,
here it's very much focused on Paula's
yes,
life and her development and her movement from being a teenager, a young woman.
yes.
It's very
I
contemporary. It's all set in our times. And then she goes on to become an adult and to become a proper artist in speech marks.
Yes, yes. And I wanted to approach, because I've always wrote book with collective collective figures, collective characters, in that major workplace where a bridge is built. After that, in that hospital where a medical team is transferring her heart. And then I wanted to approach myself and my writing very close to that young woman, and to see, not she's not an heroine, very gifted, but she passionated me, because she's like us. And I think I I was very, by writing that book, I felt also for me an initiation to my own language, because I have to find all that lexicals, all that vocabularies I didn't know before writing that book. And it was as if, as Paula, I was experiencing an initiation me to my own French. So it was a very intimate experience in writing also.
There are so many layers and levels in this novel, and we can talk about all of them. And you've mentioned most of them, I think, just in that wonderful answer you've just given. But you have got the level of language, the level of you exploring your own language, as you say, but also
Yeah.
this young woman's discovery of herself.
Mm.
And I'm wondering, in fact, I mean, these names, you have these long lists of names of the colors of
Yes.
paints, for example, and then you invent colors for the sky, like the grapefruit sky. I've never thought of a sky as being grapefruit before, and it's you're pushing us, but you're pushing yourself as well, and you're very much pushing the translator.
Yeah. But for me, I think literature and much more perhaps the novel, the form of the novel as a literary gender. I think it is the best territory to be precise and to take time. And perhaps it is there is no many places in our contemporary lives where we can take time to look, time to write, time to imagine and to connect things. And I love to do that work about the vocabularies of brushes, of stones, of colors. I was completely amazed by all the ancient name of colors. For example, in French, you have a kind of pink. It's just to say that detail. You have a kind of pink that is called cuisse de nymphe émue. Perhaps it's like a leg, a pink, which has a leg of a nymph which is completely disturbed, by emotion. That is a kind of pink.
Isn't
And
that wonderful, though? That's the
yes,
poetry in the name of the color
yes,
already.
completely, and also in the names of marbles, and in the name of all the pigments and all the materials. And as when I was writing that book, I was feeling that I was entering a completely unknown world of in but even if I was in my own writing, it was another French for me. So it's for me the great chance, the great opportunities of that
It's
gives
amazing.
you
I mean, and when you have,
as a writer.
when
Yeah.
you write like this too, and you have these long sentences and these beautiful long lists of names and words, and you read it out loud and you just appreciate the
Mm.
beauty of it. I wonder, do you read your writing
Yes.
out loud? You do?
Yes, because the fact is the documentation does not come in first. First, I'm focused about on the character and on the action of the trajectory of the fiction,
But no
because
research. That
I
just to be clear, no research. The
not
research does not begin the novel.
before. No, the research are I do it when I am writing, because I want to keep the organic texture of the book. Otherwise, I think you can act as if you were a scholar. I mean, it's too it's it could be artificial. You keep oh, I have to speak about that. I have to write about that, and you can lose your own temper. You can lose the own
Your own
flow.
voice and your own voice as well.
So I'm doing the research when, I mean, it is the fiction who leads me to documentation and not the contrary. Fiction leads to documentation because the documentation is leading me to imagination, to connection. So for example, when I was first, I wanted to write a book on Lascaux, and because in 2015 and 2016, two major sites of construction opened in France to rebuild two ancient caves. One in Ardèche in La Grotte Chauvet, and the other in Lascaux in Montignac. And these were two facsimiles, what we call facsimiles. The caves have been completely cloned, and for example, the granulation of the mineral walls are completely exact, and I was wondering why we are doing uh, all all that kind of efforts of technology to build false things, to build things that are not true. But so I went to see. I went. I've been in. I went in Lascaux and in Ardèche also, and I saw the young painters, the young craftsmen and craftswomen who were working there, and I remembered I was observed. I was watching very carefully how they were working, and the book, my novel, shifts towards Paula, and it became the book of Paula.
I was wondering which came first, whether, what came first, whether it was Lascaux,
No,
the caves, or Paula, or
it was
or
the desire.
Cinecittà.
It was the desire to write about reality and truth, and what is true and what is real, and about fiction. I wanted to dig what is my own and intimate relationship to fiction, because when you are a novelist, you are writing stories. You are with your imagination. It's not real stories, but they are true. So I was thinking about that, and that story of the two facsimiles came to me, and I decided to write. And also, I have a deep passion for prehistoric times, and it's my and I am also intimately linked to Lascaux because my father, who was a little boy in Dordogne, he saw the real caves. He went and he always told me how it was. And when the caves were shut in 1963, it was like a part of a world that part of the world were being became invisible. But I keep in memory the stories, how he told me his memory of that, of his visit. You see, so the place, I couldn't see it anymore. It was not possible to see it, but it existed in my mind by the story, by the way my father went there when he was around 10. So,
and you know, the story you tell of your father now makes it clear to me why you included Paula's father as well.
yes,
She includes that episode where her father tells her he went to see the Lascaux caves. And she said, it's not possible. It's not possible. You couldn't have. But he did. And I think, I mean, the Lascaux caves, which we, of course, only know because of the copies, because of the replicas that were made.
yes,
None of us have seen it, and
yes,
you haven't. But you've been able to reproduce it in this novel,
yeah.
and it is the amazing climax of the novel. It's
And
the final few chapters are devoted to the Lascaux caves.
yes, and also because you see, it was as if I connecting what is a novel and what is the facsimile of the cave, because for me the novel is also a way to discover, to know, to go into something and to have an access to something. For example, when I was a teenager, I had that kind of relationship with literature. I'm sure that I read to know the world and to be connected with lives that I couldn't have any access in terms of places or times, and it was very, very intense for me. And for me, I mean, this facsimile of Lascaux, we don't see the real cave, but we can perfectly understand and have an experience of space, of the walls, and of the drawings, of the paintings.
But this
And
is
we
also,
can imagine also.
but surely this is also what the whole novel is about, which is why the Lascaux caves are the perfect climax of the novel. And I
Yeah,
use that word climax in
yes,
all senses because it is almost like an erotic climax
yes,
at the end of the novel as well. But it's about the art of illusion. It's about Lascaux being the birth of
the birth
art,
of
the
art.
birth of
Yeah,
painting.
yeah,
And it's when Paula, if you like, becomes this mature Venus, if you like, artist, and she rises into this, extraordinary being, and becomes one with the caves. It's an
yes,
amazing piece of writing, and I'm thinking this is probably a really good time to give people an idea of how beautiful, how wonderful your writing is, Maylis.
thank you.
And we're going to this passage where you describe how Paula and her fellow students, at the very beginning of their careers and their studies, have to learn how to see.
Yes,
And which is what we all have to do in the novel, in life, and everything. So now you've kindly recorded this reading for us, and it's from this wonderful book, Painting Time, and I'll read the English after we've heard from Maylis. Thank you.
thank you. Apprends à voir. Ses yeux brûlent, explosés, sollicités comme jamais auparavant, soit ouverts 18 heures sur 24, moyenne qui inclura par la suite les nuits blanches à travailler et les nuits de fête. Le matin, il cligne sans cesse comme si elle était placée en pleine lumière, les cils vibrant continuellement des ailes de papillon, Mais passé le coucher du soleil, elle les sent faiblir. Son œil gauche cloche. Il verse sur le côté comme on s'affaisse sur un talus d'herbes fraîches au bord du chemin. Elle les soigne, rince ses paupières à l'eau de bleuet, y dépose des sachets de thé congelés, essaie des gels et des collyres, mais rien ne vient apaiser la sensation d'yeux tirés, secs, de pupilles rigides. Rien ne vient empêcher la formation de cernes bruns et durables, un marquage au visage, le stigmate du passage et de la métamorphose. Car voir, sous la verrière de l'atelier de la rue du Métal, défoncé dans les odeurs de peinture et de solvant, les muscles douloureux et le front brûlant, cela ne consiste plus seulement à se tenir les yeux ouverts dans le monde, c'est engager une pure action, créer une image sur une feuille de papier, une image semblable à celle que le regard a construite dans le cerveau. Pour autant, il ne s'agit pas de voir dans le détail avec précision. Cela, c'est quand même la moindre des choses, pensait Paula. Et plus tard, elle s'exaspérerait d'entendre ses parents vanter sa précision d'orfèvre. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de reproduire la réalité, d'en donner un reflet, de la copier. Voir, ici, c'est autre chose. Paula ne sait quoi, pas encore. Mais d'instinct, elle comprend qu'elle a sous-estimé ce qu'elle aurait à donner en ce lieu. Et le samedi matin, dans la lumière zénithale du grand atelier, à l'heure de la tournée des panneaux, les élèves s'écartant pour livrer passage à la dame au col roulé noir afin qu'elle puisse s'approcher de leurs travaux et en dire quelque chose, des indications concrètes, simples, des mots que certains auraient bêtement jugés niais ou fades, mais qui prenaient dans le silence une forme exacte, un poids juste, un sens approprié. Pensez à peindre avec vos glaciers intérieurs, avec vos propres volcans, avec vos sous-bois et vos déserts, vos villas à l'abandon, avec vos hauts, vos très hauts plateaux. On distingue alors Paula dans l'assistance, les yeux luisants, alors que ceux-ci au même moment s'entr'ouvrent en elle, l'idée que le trompe-l'œil est bien autre chose qu'un exercice technique, bien autre chose qu'une simple expérience optique. C'est une aventure sensible qui vient agiter la pensée, interroger la nature de l'illusion et peut-être même, c'est le credo de l'école, l'essence de la peinture. Dans son cerveau pétulant, mais mal débrouillé, l'enseignement qu'elle reçoit se résorbe en un principe élémentaire qu'elle s'approprie lentement. Le trompe-l'œil doit faire voir alors même qu'il occulte, et cela implique deux moments distincts et successifs, un temps où l'œil se trompe, un temps où l'œil se détrompe. Si le dévoilement de l'impostura n'a pas lieu, alors la dame au col roulé noir se ferme, elle hausse les épaules et abat sur l'assistance son regard froid d'oiseau solitaire. Cela signifie que l'on se trouve face à une idiotie, face à un procédé, face à une supercherie. Et alors, la virtuosité du peintre, l'intelligence de son regard, la beauté du tableau, tout cela ne peut être reconnu, tout cela demeure hors d'atteinte. Et voyez-vous, articulait-elle, voyez-vous, cela tue le plaisir, cela casse le travail. Et c'était là ce qu'elle pouvait dire de pire, une condamnation sans appel. Elle faisait grincer les sifflantes et expulser avec dégoût ces mots, casser le travail.
Thank you so much, Maylis. And now the same passage, beautiful passage in English, translated by Jessica Moore. She learns to see, her eyes burn, fried, worked like never before, open 18 hours a day. An average that will soon include the sleepless nights spent slogging and other nights of partying. In the morning, her eyes blink incessantly as though she'd been plopped down in full sun, lashes vibrating, butterfly wings. But after sunset, she feels them weakening. Her left eye limps. It slips to the side like someone sinking onto a bank of fresh grass at the edge of the path. She rinses her lids with blueberry water, places frozen tea bags on them, tries gels and eye washes, but nothing eases the sensation of tired, dry eyes, rigid pupils. Nothing can stop the formation of persistent dark circles under them. Her face has been branded. The stigmata of this rite of passage, of metamorphosis. Because to see, under the glass roof of the studio on the Rue de Métal, high on fumes from paint and solvents, muscles sore and forehead burning, doesn't just mean keeping your eyes open to the world. To see is to engage in a pure action, create an image on a sheet of paper, an image that resembles the one the eyes have created in the brain. And it's not enough to see in detail. That's the least of it, thinks Paula. And later she'll be exasperated to hear her parents boast about her expert precision. It's not just about reproducing reality, giving a reflection of it, copying it. To see here is something else. Paula doesn't know what, not yet, but she instinctively understands that she's underestimated what would be required of her. And Saturday morning, in the zenithal light of the big studio, when the time has come for the tour of the easels, the students step aside to clear a passage for the woman in the black turtleneck, so she can look at their work up close and say something about it. Directions that are concrete, simple, words that some might foolishly take as empty or anodyne, but which in the silence take on an exact shape, a weight that is just, a meaning that is right. Try painting with your inner glaciers, with your own volcanoes, with your underbrush and your deserts, your abandoned villas and your high, high plateaus. We can see Paula in the midst of the group, eyes shining. And in the same moment, this thought is opening inside her. Trompe-l'œil is something very different from a technical exercise, completely other than a simple optical experience. It's a sensory adventure that shakes up our thinking, challenges the nature of illusion, and maybe even, and this is the school's credo, the very essence of painting. In her ebullient but tangled brain, the instruction she receives is reabsorbed as an elementary principle that she takes a while to claim for herself. Trompe-l'œil has to make us see at the same time that it obscures. And this involves two distinct and successive moments. One in which the eye is deceived, and one in which it's undeceived. If the reveal of l'impostura doesn't occur, the woman in the black turtleneck concludes, she shrugs, shoots her cold gaze over the group like a solitary bird, then all that stands before us is nonsense, a process, a fraud. And so the virtuosity, the intelligence of the painter's eye, the beauty of the tableau, all this cannot be recognized. All this remains out of reach. And you see, she says, this wrecks the pleasure. This kills the work. And that was the worst thing she could say. An incontrovertible condemnation. She makes the plosive explode and spits out these words with disgust. Kills the work. Well, Maylis, there we are. I mean, that is just 2 to 3 pages of this wonderful novel. It's amazing. I love reading it, but I don't think I'll ever be able to paint again because I feel deeply ashamed that I may never feel the depth of emotion. It's great. Now, I just want to ask you a few quick questions as well, because it's very, very clear from this novel that you appreciate the technique, people working with their hands, craftspeople, artisans. You have such an understanding of them, but you put them center stage. It's not just the painters, the old masters, and so on. You actually like the people who make things in this way that Paula is learning to do.
Yes, yes, indeed. As a writer, I turned myself and my writing towards persons who are always in action, who are doing things, who are building bridge, harvesting organs, and learning a profession, learning how to cook, how to paint. And for me, it's very important because you can give to the reader a pure sensation, a pure experience, because you are writing not only by dilating inner
amateur. You're not writing about amateurs. You're writing about specialists,
and also by the writing pass through the body. You know, it's physical, material, and sensitive writing, because when you are interested by work, by action, by experience, by you immerse your writing in a physical material, literal material. And for me, it's much more intense than floating in inner thoughts, because I prefer to focus on what is exactly to paint a marble when it's midnight and you are completely exhausted and you have your two poles, one here, and they are painting together, and you are remembering that thing that when you were a child, how with your parents, who you were in Versailles, and you saw this material. You can connect everything, but it is the action who is the access to the interior, to the inner thoughts, to the interiority. I mean, it's the exteriority which is leading to interiority, and I prefer writing that way than writing from the top, always looking to your character by
from
above
the top
them.
down. Yes.
Yes.
No, you're down there. You're getting your hands dirty with your characters. I can definitely feel that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you referred just now to your previous novels, which have been translated into English. We have 4, thankfully. Not enough of your novels translated, but we have 4.
Yes.
And the one is The Birth of a Bridge,
Yes.
which again is about engineering. It's about
of course,
mechanical engineering, and then you've got The Cook, which is about cooking, cuisine, haute cuisine. Again, learning to do something technical, a specialism. And you've got Men the Living, heart surgery,
medical, technical. Yes, about transplant surgery. But when I'm dreaming about a book, when I'm desiring to write something, I start from very far from my object, because what I like is to reach a world unknown. I mean, in terms of sociology, in terms of profession, of technique, of language, a place where I could be as a foreigner, as a complete foreigner. So for me, it's very important to understand that my point to technique has two skills, perhaps. One is to be as a foreigner in my own work, and to be like candid. I mean, to keep my eyes and my ears wide open and and I like this word of attentiveness, to be very, very
constantly alert and attentive.
Yes. And the other thing is also by interesting my books by technique, to be interested by technical words, is also in terms of language, because I want, doing that, writing like that, I want to give literal dignity to words that are not considered to have a literal dignity, and they are considered like, low pieces of our language. And these low pieces, I hold them, I find them, and then I reactivate them in the novel sentences. And for me, by that act, I discover what is all these words which are connected to a profession. I mean, to a painter, to a decorative painter, or to an engineer, or to a cook. All these words, of this expression, of this oral expression, that are not considered to be interesting, not glamorous, not enough glamorous for the novel as a gender. And I think they have their own beauty, and by insert them in my sentences, I make frictions. I mean, my own language finds is granulations, also its rhythm, its materiality. And I like to, and for me, it is the other point of being interested by technique. It's also in terms, I harvest language when I'm interested by a special world, a special profession, a special technical world. During my research, writing. When I was writing Painting Time, I went to Brussels, but I also went to Cinecittà and to visit all the backlots and the huge sceneries where so many movies have been shot. And I also went to Moscow to see the most film studio, and I discovered I was in the Orlov ballroom that day. I remember they were shooting another version of Anna Karenina, and
so that's why you have Anna Karenina in this novel, because at the very beginning, that's when the very beginning of the novel is when Paula and her friends meet again after many years. And she's been painting the set of another Anna Karenina novel, film, which has been filmed. So, and Cinecittà, you mentioned Cinecittà, which is, again, I was wondering when I was reading it, what had been the starting point of the novel, what had been the main location, because Cinecittà is a turning point in the novel. Lascaux is the climax. And Cinecittà, which is this incredible place. It is another city. It is Cinema City, just outside Rome, and where all these theatres, film sets, from many, many decades have been reproduced and so on. It's an incredible story, this one place, isn't it?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your feeling about, why you included it.
Because
how?
I think it was by including Cinecittà in my novel, I tried to reach the point where fiction and reality were completely weaved together, connected together. And when I visited Cinecittà, I discovered a Tuscany old town, and this set was employed by many directors, and so it became for me like fictions boxes, a box for fiction,
a box of stories in every single scene.
Stories, yes, and it was very strange place because it was quite empty when I went there. It was in winter, and I was completely alone walking in that huge town, which is completely false, but where you can remember, when your memory is so active, because when you are walking in Cinecittà, you cannot avoid thinking about heroic person, huge character, important characters seen in movies, and also sometimes there is a hole in a wall, and you say, well, here it is reality, or it's just behind the wall. What is
reality and what is false? What is illusion? What is reality? What is truth?
You feel completely lost.
Yeah,
it's incredible, and it was a very important experience for me, because Paula at that time she understands that you can not create only a piece of marble, but a huge world for fiction. And what interested me a lot, it was also to learn that at first the origin of the studios of Cinecittà and also Mosfilm and even Ballenberg in Berlin they have been built by dictators, by Mussolini, and that kind of political regime to build propaganda, to build a film of propaganda. And at the end of the Second World War, Cinecittà became a place for refugees, and the refugees were at the end played in their own the movie of their own story. So you began to feel completely lost. What is movies and what is history and what is reality, and it was very, very intense for me to learn all the story of that.
So what it seems to me is that you're, at the same time as Paula is learning about painting and truth and art, you yourself are learning it as well. There's always this
Of course.
autobiographical push
Yes, yes.
within
It's a very
within every
personal
book
book.
you do.
It's a very personal book.
Yeah.
It's and I think it does not. I think in literature and also and much more in novel, a novel doesn't has to be autobiographic to be personal, and this book is not an autobiography, but it is very very personal. It's like a self-portrait, in fact, because it's a portrait of a young woman who became who who do her own trajectory to find her own life, and she starts by completely excuse me, aveugle. What is aveugle?
Blind.
Completely blind at first, completely lost, and then she starts to see. And by learning, by exploring, by working also, she will find even love at the time, because there is a love story in that book that is like an under river, who which is going through the in the deep layer of the earth, and that river comes up at the end of the book when Paula and Jonas uh, are in love. In fact, it was a, a love story that occurred in Sourdine during all the book, and at the end, in that climax of Lascaux, they realized that they loved each other.
Maylis, you said that you don't research your books before you start writing them, and that the characters, and I think the names of the names and titles are very, very important to you as well.
Very important.
Before
Yes.
you start, and there's a whole other layer of names.
Yes. The first thing when I'm when I start book, I used to dream about the names, because the names will
why are they so important? Why are the names so important?
Because the name, I look at them like capsules of sensation, and they have a phonetic and they have sounds. So it's very important, the sound of a name in a sentence when you read it, and also they brings to me imagination. They bring to me image and memories. And for example, polar karst. The karst is that kind of rocks that where cave can be created, because the water of the rains penetrates. They come through the stones, through the earth, and can create that kind of caves, and also that underland river and things like that. And also karst is only one syllable, and it's a very strong name. And
one syllable.
Yeah, yes. One syllable, and it's very strong name. And Jonas Rothschild's, I gave him a name which looks towards, the Pays-Bas, towards Netherlands, towards Rembrandt, because Rembrandt, it's perhaps the painter I prefer.
Rembrandt. Yes, you probably pronounced it properly. In English, Rembrandt. It's straight Rembrandt. Rembrandt. You see, and that again, I'm determined to talk a little bit about translation, because how we translate all these. I mean, not only is this novel and your other novels that have been translated a supreme masterpiece of translation, and this one particularly by Jessica Moore, but
Jessica Moore,
but there are other translators as well. But you call yourself a translator too.
Yes, because as I said to you, by discovering all these lexical, all these vocabularies, by being initiated to my own French, I am feeling like a translator, and I think that it's a famous idea elaborated by Proust. He said a good writer is like always writes as if was a foreigner. Les bons livres sont toujours écrits dans des langues étrangères, qui ont l'air étrangères. And I think that I've been very lucky to meet Jessica Moore, because she is a poetess and she's also a musician, and she has this sense of voices. She has this sense of rhythm, of flow, the flow of the language, the flow of the writing. And I think, for me, in my conception of translation, a translation is also an author, because the translator is the author of Painting Time. We can say that Jessica Moore has written the text of Painting Time. So for me, she is very, very important, and we feel very close to each other, but by sharing a same language. I mean, a border language.
Now, you've been writing for and publishing for over 20 years, and
Yes.
we've unfortunately only discovered you in English in the last 10 years or so. So, I mean, I'm sorry about that, but
No.
I really, really hope we get more translations of all your work, because of the 4 books that I know, and the last 2, particularly Men the Living and Painting Time, I can see that, and I want to know whether you think this is true, whether there is a body of work that you are, in a way, creating your own philosophy of the world of Maylis de Kerangal, because each book explores something very special, very unique. And
It's
they're
like a
similar. They're similar in a way too. They're always different subjects, but they've got a similar intensity and depth.
Yes, you are right. I think these books are like rituals, because they always they participate to the same gesture of writing. It is always the same gesture, starting from far. I never used my own private life and things I'm immersed in to write. I'm always I'm very fond of exploration, and also the epic gesture of going and catch and seize, and and to approach myself and my language to words I do not have any experience before. And it's by the writing and by the very intimate relationship I built with my own language, book after book, that I can approach these words and giving a representation of them, a representation so detailed, because so precise, that the books can give the idea that they are like autobiographic book. You understand?
I do. And I wonder, I mean, you speak about fiction and autobiography, but these are obviously not your stories. So you are exploring issues that you feel very interested in and passionate about. But it's not you're not Paula, and you're not Mon or any of the characters in any of your other books.
No, I'm not Paula, but in fact I am everywhere in the book. I am not only in one character, but I feel I am everywhere in the book.
You are, and I wonder, Maylis, this idea of being everywhere, because the narrator of all the books is everywhere. And I want, there is no one narrator. Is that true?
Yes, there is no one narrator. It's sometimes it's a polyphonic narration, but for me it's not so polyphonic. It's a narrator who is following the action. It's for example, in the Birth of a Bridge, the bridge was the main character of the book. He was like a personage, and after in Men the Living, the heart was like the main character of the book. By following the path of the heart from one body to another body, the writing was very, very close to the action, and also can hold all the feeling connecting to that translation, to that transfer, and that kind of migration. And here, by following Paula's path, Paula's trajectory, I think this book shifts a little, because Paula is, for me, the main character, and I think perhaps the narrator is everywhere, but he enlightens Paula at each page. Yes. For enlightening Paula you are watching her at each
yes
page.
And at the end, in a way, you could argue Paula is herself the storyteller, the narrator. At the end, she takes over at the end. But you know, there's so much. I know that you've just published this week. You're actually launching 2 books this week. One is Painting Time in English with all of us, and we're so grateful for that. You're also launching a new French book, Canoë, is that correct? This is a short stories brought together.
Yes, it's a composition of 8 stories, 8 texts. The book is made. There is a huge text which takes perhaps half of the book. Is made by a novella, what we call novella. It's not as big as a novel, but much more longer than a short story.
Novella.
It exists in English also. So there is a novella and around 7 short stories, and it's a satellite, a constellation construction, like composition, and it's about voices, feminine voices, and because for me it is also short stories, but also it can be read as a novel, because it's a composition where all the stories are talking to each other, are linked to each other by the themes of voice, and also because the narrative voice is always the same. I think it's always un jeu narratif, but this the one of a woman.
Well, félicitations
Thank you
for everything, for these 2 books. I mean, it's a joy to have discovered your work, Maylis, and I look forward to interviewing you, as they say, in real life one day soon. And I know that... Oh, you're very welcome. The endings of your novels are very, very important, I know. So I'm going to give you a good ending here. So my ending today is constructed very carefully for you. It is the climax of this event. And it's to say that each interview that we do, each novel you do, is a work of art, of conversation. And interviews like this can be also chemistry and communication. And they also have a life of their own, I think. So I thank you for that. But also my understanding of this novel and of fiction and of art is all the more profound for having spent this hour with you. Thank you, Maylis, so much.
Thank you.
Oh, no, I'm so happy to have had this chance to talk to you. And I thank everybody at the Institut Français here in London. There's a whole team behind us, and there are thousands of you listening, I know, and watching. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Maylis de Kerangal in Paris. And don't forget, later on, everyone, please join us at 8:00, because there is another amazing event. It's called Legacy of Algeria, and I'm just going to get you a few details about that. It's called Algeria, a Legacy Today at 8:00, and it's with the playwright and author Alice Sanitaire. And she's going to be joined by Natalia Vince to discuss how these trans-Mediterranean literary ties of France and Algeria continue to inform the Franco-Algerian relationship. So thank you, everyone, very much. And thank you also to my wonderful team at the European Literacy Network. Au revoir à tout le monde.
Au revoir, merci beaucoup.
Au revoir, un grand bisou.
Merci.
Au revoir.
Au revoir, Rosie.